Welcome, everyone, and welcome to Straight Science. Straight Science is an evening science presentation series put on by University of Alaska Fairbanks Northwest Campus here in Nome, and also University of Alaska Fairbanks Alaska Sea Grant. And tonight you're in the home office just outside of Nome. So tonight we have a very Bering Strait science, and this is going to be on the Arctic Watch project, which will give us more information and thoughts about vessel traffic management in the Bering Strait region. And I believe you guys are also looking for audience participation with questions and ideas. Do you want those at the end or just when we think of it?
Uh, if people want to throw it in the chat, or so we didn't prepare the
Okay,
the, the survey
that's
or
fine.
anything.
And I'll be monitoring the chat as well. So no worries there. So right now we are scattered all over. We have Rose MacArthur, who is Kawerak's marine advocate. She is in Nome. We have Kaare Erickson, who's currently in Anchorage. And we have Steve White with the Marine Exchange of Alaska, Executive Director. He is in Juneau. So tonight we're really grateful. All of you are taking time out of a busy day to let the Bering Strait region know a little bit more about Arctic Watch. With that, I know I'll just give it over to you, Kaare, and say, take it away. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Gay. Thanks for hosting us with the nice weather and with the sickness. I hope you feel better. Hi, everybody. My name is Kaare Erickson, and I recognize about half the names on the screen. So hello to old friends and hello to new ones as well. I'm originally from Unalakleet, Alaska, up in the Bering Straits region. I currently live in Anchorage, and my parents are Jeff and Donna Erickson in Unalakleet. Um, and I help with this project I'm the engagement lead, so I'm helping with the engaging in the communities and kind of helping facilitate some of those as you'll learn throughout the presentation. But before we start sharing the screen, I'll hand it over to um, Captain Steve White to give a couple sentences about himself as well, and then Anna Rose, and then we'll start our presentation.
Ahoy, everybody, and good evening. Some places, those calling in from the East Coast, I guess it's a little later in the evening. I'm Steve White. I'm here at the Marine Exchange in Juneau. I've been here for almost 5 years. Before that, I did 30 years in the Coast Guard. A lot of that time up here in Alaska, 4 tours on ships up here, 3 tours ashore, finished as a captain of the port here in Southeast Alaska. So thanks for your time, and look forward to spending some time talking about Arctic Watch with you tonight, and I'll bump it over to Anna Rose.
Hi, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, or a lot of familiar names, rather, on the screen. I'm Anna Rose MacArthur. I live in Nome and work as the Marine Advocate at Kawerak. I started in the position in October of 2022. And as Marine Advocate, it's my job to advocate for tribal priorities regarding industrial marine activities, mainly around shipping. As we're all aware, shipping has increased dramatically through the Bering Strait, and it's my job with Kawerak to make sure that tribes are at the decision-making table with shipping policy decisions. And that's why we're involved with Arctic Watch. So, thank you.
All right, so today we will be talking about the Arctic Watch project, and apologize for the mountains in the background. I know it doesn't look like the Bering Strait, so I'll have to specifically tell ChatGTP next time to remove the mountains. Um, oh, let me see if it'll let me go to the next slide. So today we are hoping to share with you, to kind of introduce you to the reason why Arctic Watch was developed, the initiative of Arctic Watch, kind of some of those history that led up to it, the Arctic Safe Shipping Working Group that kind of that came together before the formation of Arctic Watch, as well as kind of how the formation of the Kawerak Marine Program kind of has its hand in this kind of history that led up to this development of the project. We want to describe what the project is and what the project isn't, and kind of the context of the size and scope of the geography of this project, as well as the timeline for it, just so that you can get a better idea of what exactly the project is and isn't. And then we also want to share some of the tools and resources that the project is providing to the public, and also to the specifically the Bering Straits area residents, including plans for the 2025 and 2026, which is kind of the time frame for this grant. One quick disclaimer that I wanted to share with you was that it's easy to assume that we'll be, because we refer to Bering Strait a lot throughout this presentation and throughout the project, and we're kind of, we'll explain more as to why we're dialing it in, and kind of, they're, in a nutshell, basically, you have limited resources, and we kind of want to start at the kind of the bottleneck to utilize and leverage these the Marine Exchange of Alaska's suite of tools and resources here at the bottleneck of the Bering Strait area waterways. We're calling it waterways because when you refer to it as like the Bering Strait region, for instance, you have that political kind of hard line, north of Shishmaref, anything above, why are you? So like we are going to be more strategic in using that language, that we're kind of here. This project is focusing on the Bering Strait waterways, basically from around Tikiak, Point Hope, down to around the Imanga Kotlik area. So it doesn't correlate directly with the Bering Strait political regional lines, but it more or less correlates with the waterways of the Bering Straits, is what we're referring to utilize in this project, or for the geographical scope. So really briefly, I'm going to kind of tell you guys what you're going to hear today. And we're trying to do this in a kind of a chronological kind of way, to so that the first part of the presentation, you're going to hear from Captain Steve White about the Marine Exchange of Alaska, because their overarching suite of tools and expertise is really at the root of the Arctic Watch project. It's really powered by that kind of suite of tools and that suite of expertise, and it's really mind-blowing seeing the program that they have down there, and the amount of awesome work that they do in the coasts further south. And so Captain Steve White will talk about the Marine Exchange of Alaska, kind of those suite of tools, and kind of how we're kind of leveraging those tools to be kind of leverage for specifically the Arctic environment, starting with the Bering Straits kind of waterways area. Second, we'll have Anna Rose share about the formation of the Kawerak Marine Program, kind of the scope of the program, and how it was really based on these kind of two historical workshops in 2014 and 2016, called the Bering Strait Voices on Arctic Shipping, where Kawerak brought in regional voices and leadership and mariners from the entire region to really provide directives and ideas, specifically directives that we are trying to act on in the Arctic Watch project, and how that kind of evolved into the 2024 Arctic Watch Partners meeting, which was kind of a follow-up to those two previous workshops. And kind of Anna Rose will kind of talk about the progress and the steps, and also some of the deliverables that we've gotten from that 2024 workshop that are really awesome. And I think you should check out which specifically is the report. And then third, we'll circle back to where we're at right now, kind of this funding period, the build out plan, some of the tools. We'll go onto the website and show you some of the resources that Arctic Watch has developed, and Steve will kind of share most of that, but I'll also kind of tag team it, and I'll talk a little bit about the plan for engaging communities in the next 2 years, which I'll be helping lead. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to retired Captain Steve White to share a few slides and kind of introduce us to what the Marine Exchange of Alaska is, its personnel, its purpose, kind of maybe some examples of why your guys' tools and resources are so important.
Sure. Great. Hey, thanks, Corey, and thanks for kind of the laying down the groundwork for this. So, a lot of people don't know what marine exchanges are. Marine exchanges have been around for a long time, not necessarily up here, but San Francisco just celebrated their 175th anniversary of a marine exchange. Marine exchanges, probably a better name for them is Marine Information Exchange. They have taken different information, and their purpose is to help the maritime be safer, more efficient, and really address concerns, whether it's protecting the environment, protecting safety of mariners, making sure things are done, and working with the collective people that make it work. That's government agencies, that can be academia, that can be local communities, concerned citizens, NGOs, but really exchanging information for where our common concerns, our common interests are to make things work better. The way they used to do that, looking out to sea, communicating with flag hoist and flashing lights and later telegraph, that's changed. The Marine Exchange of Alaska just was developed almost 25 years ago. And when we came on board, the technology, the technological age was here. So we've really used technology to address those concerns and collect and disseminate information with a whole host of tools that has enabled us to reach greater areas, which is important, especially up here in Alaska. You just can't do things with manpower the way you can in some of these other port-specific places. We got such vast areas to look at. And then we've had to couple that with maritime expertise. People who understand what's going on out on the water, how to communicate with vessels, and what are the needs, the information needs out there. Now, I'll tell you, my work in the Coast Guard before this has really set me up for where we are today. We used to rescue people, clean up oil spills, do enforcement when people were doing things wrong. And all that is kind of on the back end. And what we try and do is prevent all those things from happening. So you don't have to be cleaning up oil. You don't have to be issuing fines. You don't have to be pulling people out of the water who are in peril. Really trying to find a way to make things safer up there. So next slide, Corey.
Real quickly, Steve, could you talk just a little bit about specifically what the Marine Operations Center provides real quickly?
Sure, yeah. So the Marine Exchange of Alaska, we're kind of divide up a couple ways to think about it is, we have the technology that we maintain throughout the state. And we work with other marine exchanges too in the lower 48, but up here in Alaska, we have what we call marine safety sites, which will go out and we'll build and we'll hang equipment on to communicate and track vessels. And then we have a 24/7 watch center that's kind of watching that those sites and vessels, and then addressing any concerns that come up. On the screen that you're looking at right now, it just kind of shows a laydown of those marine safety sites. And if you were to go to the Marine Exchange of Alaska webpage, you could actually get to this. And the different capabilities along the bottom there, you could click on those and find out where those different resources are. One thing you would find very quickly is that in the Arctic, there's not a lot. And that's one of the reasons why we've started to focus up there. And if you go to the next slide, Corey. We all know, and I recognize a lot of people out there. This is not new information for a lot of you, and you've all been working on this in your own organizations. But we know traffic's increasing up there. We know there's been just tons and tons of studies and money spent studying the Arctic, and continues to go on. It's in almost every agency's national strategy. If you read about it. Things are changing up there climate wise. So there's not a lot that's changed when it comes to shipping governance or even infrastructure up there. From the time I was sailing up there, I know Captain Brigham is online, who sailed the icebreaker. Anybody who's kind of sailed up here, there's not a whole lot that's changed. In regards to capabilities up in this area that everybody's focused on. So that's kind of the why we need to do something in the Arctic, and why I have a passion just from getting to know the folks up there. My wife's from Alaska, my kids all been born here, but that the region up there and how unique it is, it's a very special to me. And being able to work together with other people with a common interest who want to work together to address some of these concerns is exciting for me. With that, I will bump it back to Corey, over to Anna Rose.
Yeah, thanks, Captain White. And just to let you guys know, you could ask any of the Arctic Watch workshop delegates about this, and that was one of the reasons why we brought so many folks down from the Kawerak region or from the Bering Straits region down to Juneau last year for the workshop, was because this barely scratches the surface on just the amount of tools and resources that they do provide. So I just wanted to say this barely scratches the surface on the things that are provided through the Marine Exchange of Alaska. But having said that, we will circle back at the end to talk about how Arctic Watch is utilizing specific tools and kind of leveraging some of those resources and expertise. But now we will move on to Anna Rose, who will share about the Kawerak Marine program, as well as kind of how it relates to the Arctic Watch project.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Rose MacArthur again, Marine Advocate at Kawerak. Kawerak is the nonprofit tribal consortium for the 20 tribes of the Bering Strait region. And the Bering Strait, as I'm sure everyone on the call is aware, is a region, a waterway that is changing very quickly. The sea ice is diminishing, waters are getting warmer, the ecosystem is changing, shipping is increasing, and governments and government agencies very far from this area are making Arctic policy decisions that affect the area. And so the Kawerak Marine Program works to track these developments and to assert tribal priorities into these processes. And that's because the future of the Bering Strait and the future of the tribes are intimately tied together, and tribes should be making the decisions about that future. And the Marine Program at Kawerak started in 2015 by the Kawerak Board to address these concerns. And the foundation for the program was really set in 2014, and then in 2016 during workshops, the Bering Strait Voices on Arctic Shipping workshops that gathered together tribal and municipal representatives from around the region together to talk about the marine concerns and the desire for shaping the future of shipping and industrial marine activity in the region. And there were really three main imperatives that came out of those workshops for shipping. And that's the need to know what's happening with industrial marine shipping in the region, the need to be at the table shaping those policies for shipping, and the need for clean and safe waters for subsistence wildlife and subsistence users. And Arctic Watch is one method to advance those priorities. Through the Arctic Watch website now, everyone has access to live shipping information in the Bering Strait waterways. the people in the region are at the table shaping Arctic Watch. And also, shipping traffic management has been a proven method for increasing maritime safety and preventing accidents. So, what we see are these workshops that happened now a decade ago, um, Arctic Watch being a response to meeting those needs. And then last year in January 2024, we had another workshop, the Arctic Watch Marine um, Traffic Workshop, and or sometimes referred to as the Arctic Watch Partners Workshop. And we had tribal delegates from 18 of the tribes in the region. Two of the delegates were not able to come at the last minute from personal reasons. Also, representatives from the Eskimo Walrus Commission and Bering Sea Elders Group gathered together in Juneau, visited the Marine Exchange of Alaska, and saw the operations center there, met the staff, and then over the course of a few days, we had discussions on what should Arctic Watch, first of all, exist? Will it meet the needs of the region? And then how should it exist? And how can it meet these longstanding concerns and desires and priorities? And the delegates who attended did affirm support for Arctic Watch, and 4 key overarching themes emerged from the workshop. And that's the importance of robust involvement, engagement, positive relationships, and local capacity to respond to accidents and natural disasters, and the capacity build out with and for communities in designing those systems. Another theme is the need for extensive, robust, and transparent multi-directional communications between vessels, communities, and the Arctic Watch system. 3, the critical value of Indigenous, local, and traditional knowledge in these systems. And finally, the paramount importance of protecting subsistence in the environment. And so we have compiled a workshop report, and you can see it in the upper corner there, that image, and it's also available on the Arctic Watch website and on the Kawerak website as well. And we are building off of those directives, and I'll pass it back to Corey to get a bit more into that.
Thanks, Santa Rose. From here, we're going to pass it back over to Captain White, and we are going to switch over to, so I'm going to stop sharing, and then I'm going to share the going on to the website. So go ahead and take it away, Steve, while I transition over here.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. She's bringing that up. I just want to say that Arctic Watch is not a marine exchange program or even a Kawerak program or any one entity. Arctic Watch is really a collaboration of a lot of different partners who have came together to make this work. Everything from funding to advocating to helping identify the right delegates to bring in. But I would say the one thing that's been kind of very important to everybody involved is making sure we're starting this out as working with the communities from the beginning, not something that comes from government down, and just really to give voice and to address needs to make sure we're on track. And really community members are the ones that help us make sure that we're not getting off track or if we need a course correction. So appreciate everybody's time, and the partners that have gone to make this work. Appreciate their collective focus on making that important. So what Corey's got up right now is he's got the Arctic Watch webpage, arcticwatch.org, if you want to go to it. And before I go into this live Arctic Watch Live, if you just scroll down, Corey, a little bit, and you'll see that report Anna Rose was talking about at the right right there. That'll load, and anybody can go to that and they can see the Partners Workshop report there. And you can just kind of flip through it on the pages there and read about that. And that's a pretty handy way, instead of us killing a bunch of trees and sending these all over for people to look at. So I bring that up as just a resource. One of the things that Anna Rose mentioned is, hey, there's a desire to know what vessels are in the area, who's transiting, and where are they. And this is a tab called Arctic Watch Live, and this is new to this season. This is something we developed. And Corey, if you go to the underneath the blue home button, there's two little squares on the right, down the little menu items. Yeah. And click on AIS target availability. Turn on that tab. This area in green that you're seeing, that is an area where all the AIS data in there, the name of the vessel, who they are, the type of the vessel, is just being provided for free. We're buying all the satellite data. We're using what AIS sites are there to see all the boats and providing that. So anybody in the region can go and they can look at that area and they can see what boats are there. So Corey, if you want to screen in, we'll go ahead and zoom in on that area. And you can see right now, there's a vessel right there. You were just on it up top. There's the Norseman 2 up there operating real close to where the ice is right now. And you'd be able to see that. So if you were in a community and you were like, hey, I see a boat off here, who are they? You could click on this site and you could know who that is already. Let's scroll back down to Nome real quick. There's a couple boats operating out there. As you zoom in, you might get more detail and see more vessels. You can click on any of those and get an idea who they are. You're also seeing a vessel there that we have, or where we have weather, and you can see the weather barb on there, and you can see what the current weather is. So there's several tabs. Again, this is meant to be a platform where we can end up sharing a lot of different information, whether that be environmental information, whether that be information for vessels that they need, a wildlife alert so they don't do harm, conflict management, trying to make sure we're not running a cruise ship into where there's a subsistence activity going on, or whatever it is. This is a place to share information and kind of provide your maritime domain awareness that's specific to this region. And then, there's scroll down a little more, Corey. And on these tabs, we have several commercial vessels that have enrolled in this, saying, yes, we'll enroll and we would like information, help us operate responsibly up there. That includes weather or any kind of information that gets shared or developed for voluntary purposes. And that daily vessel activity report, we started doing that last year. If you click on that tab, and we'll be doing this year too, where we kind of talk about different boats that are operating up there or giving information. And on that page, you'll see that it kind of walks you through how to use that live tracker too on there. So that's one of the tools that's been developed right now. I guess we can come back to questions on this if there is any, and we can go back to the slideshow, Corey. And that's I just been a lot of work getting to that point and getting that hung up, and I think that really is one of the first steps in addressing some of the needs that were identified in those workshops. So that's just a few of the things that will be hung on there that we're developing on this Arctic Watch Live, the information there. And in the build out, Both Kotzebue and that's Red Dog Mine there. We have this summer or this spring already put up 2 sites for VHF communications, which had never which didn't exist up there. So those sites are up and running. And then in this box here, planned for this year, we also plan on putting on sites that'll cover VHF comms all the way across the Bering Strait. That's going to be at Tin City. You can see a little one in Wales. We may have a redundant one in Wales, but because of the topography there, it's not as high. So we really need to get that Tin City, and looking at Teller and Nome and Stebbins as sites. Whether we get to all those in 2025 is still kind of TBD, but at least there's a lot of planning going on and working to try and see what we can do there. The other thing I'll mention is during our last meeting in Nome, which Corey will talk about a little bit, we heard some needs for aviation weather, not marine weather. And that's not really in the Marine Exchange mission profile or what we're directed to do by our board of directors, but to address those needs, some of our field techs have started working with some folks, and they're looking to try and provide some weather in both Stebbins and Wales that will help with some of those sensors that keep going down and that the communities really rely on. So that's been some neat work that they've done there. And the last 2 things here that I'll mention, and this is really a foundation of something that to help with everybody working together up here. And in other parts of Alaska and the lower 48, it's very common to have a harbor safety committee. And there was an Arctic Waterway Safety Committee that was formed several years ago, and it's kind of died off. But we are going to get ready to start something up again for this region, starting off in this Bering Straits waterway region, where we get a safety committee. Don't know what the name of it's going to be called yet. We're currently putting together a team to start figuring out how we do that. What do we call it? How can it be sustainable that we get people and we have processes where we can gather input? And that would lead to developing something like a user's guide, which is common again in other waterways. So if somebody was going to be operating in this region, here's a user guide, whether that's a hard copy or whether that sits on a website, but it kind of tells you, hey, here's the information you need to be concerned about, and here's some ways, some best practices that you can follow to help alleviate some of the concerns we have and keeping this region safe and the people operating out there safe and protecting the way of life. And I think that's it for me, and I'll wait for questions later.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, and I'll wrap up with the last couple slides, and then we'll have a lot of time to discuss with you all. So you heard a bit about the kind of the historical lead up to Arctic Watch and kind of where we're at and some of the build out plans and the tools and resources. Thanks to the National Park Service and the Alaska Ocean Observing System, who had some grant funds to pull together folks in the Bering Straits region. I won't get into the where that it was meant for a different initiative that wasn't going to happen. So they asked if it would be useful. So what we did was we reached out to a group of mariners from the region who were some of them were delegates who had previously came to our workshop. So I kind of had that history with Arctic Watch. We also reached out to several boat captains, the NSCDC and NSSP, and some search and rescue leads. So to kind of get a sample of the mariners in the region to come together and really work with the Arctic Watch team to review the plan and review the initiative just to get some local eyes on the plan and kind of the build out plan that you heard some of the references today as far as like good locations for towers or where it might be useful for say whalers on the island. Um, we had those discussions for a couple days, and I'm currently pulling together the meeting report. So if you are interested in anything on this kind of this, I have the table of contents here shared. So if you're interested in any of the things that will be included in this report, basically what I was trying to do is capture the discussions we had those 2 days in 3 different categories. The first category was kind of the capabilities and needs in the Bering Straits waterways that Arctic Watch is addressing, that because we are stretching the resources as far as we can to build out sustainable infrastructure. For instance, we don't want it just to kind of hit a cliff at 2027 and all of a sudden we don't have anything that's sustainable because we don't have the funds to sustain it. We're This first section kind of captured that part of the discussion where our team shared all the tools and resources, and we got feedback from folks and questions and kind of capturing that section. That's section 1. Section 2 of the report um, captures some of the capabilities and resources where we could leverage the Arctic Watch team, but it would take extra resources, installation and operational resources for the example we'll use in that section 2 was, a standalone marine safety site on St. Lawrence Island, which would give the local folks the ability to, and other mariners, the ability to communicate from the north and the south sides of the island. That would be kind of expensive to install a self-sustaining tower, on the island for that, and we don't have the funds for that, for instance, in this go around in these first 2 years. But that section 2 kind of captures that discussion that we had of kind of potential things that we can do with our in-house expertise. And the third section of this report that we're pulling together for this meeting was that we discussed other essential communications infrastructure that's kind of outside of the wheelhouse of the Marine Exchange of Alaska. And the main example in there is what Steve kind of touched on, was the AWAS system, which the FAA relies on for for the air travel in and out of the airports. And so that was discussed at length in that conversations that we had in those 2 days, and we don't want to just totally dismiss them because we can't solve that problem. We want to at least capture those stories. So that's the third part of this report. So if you guys are interested in receiving this report or getting notification when it is available, like in 2 weeks, you can email me at sikwok@ikagum.com to be included on a new listserv or a Google group that we formed. And this will be, if you're interested in receiving any important updates or information about the project, feel free to either email me, or if you have, say, Steve or Anna Rose's contact, or maybe even, if all else fails, I'm sure Gay can connect you to one of us. But we would love to gather your email and put it onto the listserv, and then we'll give you information that way. Otherwise, we do have a Facebook page that if you are a Facebook user, that where we do stay active and provide updates. So a couple other updates for myself personally, being the engagement lead, and this was kind of a new position I've taken in the last, say, it was 2 weeks ago that that took this position. So we'll be working pretty aggressively on these specific things. I'm going to be working with communities to figure out a efficient but effective process for communities to provide input and information into the voluntary waterways safety guide that Steve talked about. And that might mean I will be working with previous delegates and people who took part in our previous workshops, reaching out to folks and kind of identifying, because not all communities, for instance, want to be fully included. And maybe, for instance, we've spoken to Edwin in Savunga, for instance, about developing protocols for vessels on their approach to communities or traveling around communities. We want to be able to inform this guide properly if we as we pull it together. And the second thing is that I'll be recruiting a kind of I call it an on-call network for some training, but it's basically reaching out to the search and rescue groups, continuing to talk to folks in our previous workshop and identifying folks who would like to. We have funding to pull together a network of folks who, where we could train them to utilize the tools we have, but then also potentially identify folks who want to be interested in maybe technical support of our towers, of our marine safety sites, coming down to Juneau for some training. We have some funding because we heard it loud and clear in our 2024 workshop was develop capacity locally, work with local folks. Let's say, and that's coming from the region. That's kind of a no brainer for folks who come from the region, but that's one thing that we want to specifically do. So we got this funding for this year and next year, and we put aside funding to recruit on kind of a network of folks where we could pay them stipends to kind of stay involved and to get some further training in utilizing the tools. So that will include myself and maybe one or two of the other team members in some cases, but mostly myself coming into your guys' communities in the region and sharing and then hosting informational meetings. But just to let you know, we have worked with every tribe in the region pretty extensively, as well as many of the city and other entities in the region. But we will be making an effort to communicate with every, and that's one of the promises I'll make is that I will communicate with every entity in our region. So in the communities at some point. So stay tuned for those updates. Here's our email information if you want to follow up with any questions, or if you would like to be included on the listserv, or if you just want to stay in touch or have any having said that, I'm going to stop sharing and then kind of open it up for questions if folks might have. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Corey. I would say for all three of our speakers, thank you so much. And I would put your name and your address. I couldn't type that fast. So if you guys could put your name and your email address, I think I got, Corey, I think I got yours. But so this is the time during Straight Science, while people are thinking of their questions, this is the time to throw in some love in the chat for each of our three speakers. It is never easy to be a public speaker. And it certainly isn't easy when you're talking to the region after you've already completed a busy day. So we thank you guys, all three, Steve White, Rose MacArthur, and Kaare Erickson, very much for giving us. And for honestly, this is the first time I've really seen the whole Arctic Watch presentation. So it was very interesting for me to see it all. All right, you're getting some nice comments in the chat. Thank you. We've got Straight Science audience, pretty nice group, I have to say. Everyone knows what it feels like for the most part to have to public speak. So we're very grateful. And we have a question in the chat, and that's Larry Hinsman. Question for Steve, Marine Exchange. This is all great information and activities. It seems like there might be some redundancy with IARPC, the International Arctic, I should know this, but anyway, vessel tracking. And then Larry puts his website down there. Is there any communication or coordination to avoid redundancy? A contact person is Tony Boyle, and then he gives her address.
Yeah, great. Hey, ahoy, doctor. Thanks for the question. And we've been working closely with IARPIC, and I don't think Tony Boyle, we'll make sure we get with that person. One of the things that we hope to have is this portal, information portal, Arctic Watch Live develops, is a daily opsum that kind of goes on there from the vessels. And we've worked through IARPIC on that to kind of start developing that and having another place where some of it might be a little bit redundant, but another goal is to kind of get a lot of information in one place, not just the research vessels, but the other commercial vessels that are operating and enrolling and getting a host of information all in one spot.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think that's great. That's great information, great activity, great efforts. I think you are obviously doing a lot more than IARPIC was doing. And so what I was just curious about with respect to redundancy is perhaps they don't need to be doing this anymore. So it'd be nice if you could just make sure that Tony's aware of everything that you guys are doing. So anyway, but great job. Thanks.
All right, and Sue, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Gay. And first of all, thanks to you for hosting this. It's just a great series for all of us. But, you know, Corey and Steve and Anna, you know, great job. One of the best meetings I've been to was the 2024 workshop in Juneau, and I've been to a lot of meetings. I'm an old gal. Been more than interested in the Bering Strait region for a long time. And now I find myself a commissioner at the Marine Mammal Commission. So I just wanted to get on for a moment and say, commission's listening. Vicki Cornish and Jackie Schaff, we're listening. This is really important because the folks in the region are being impacted. The marine mammals in the region are being impacted. And of course, things are changing up there very quickly. With a lot more humpback whales and various other species moving about. So the communication that you've established is what I'm most impressed with. And I would hope that can continue. When I was there in Juneau, the ability of the Marine Exchange to reach out to ships directly, to communicate directly, in a timely fashion when things might be going wrong on a ship, which sometimes happens. That to me is the key thing. So that's enough for me. I think not really a question for you, but to thank you for your work.
Thank you, Sue.
All right, I see.
Thanks for the Marine Mammal Commission's done a lot of support towards this too. So thank you.
So I do see Frank Myomic at hotmail.com has put his email in there. I think he's wanting probably your reports. I'm not sure, but I would scoop that up if I was you three, and whatever you were going to give. Looks like he's trying to make communication with you. Sylvia Zhang. Oh,
I
go
don't
ahead.
see it in the I don't see it in the chat. So if you could send me Frank's email. Hi,
Yes,
Frank.
you'll
Thanks
get
for
a
tuning in.
copy. You bet. You'll get a copy of the chat when we're done. And then Sylvia Zhang writes in the chat, to complement my previous question, as marine traffic increases in the Arctic, has ship source air pollution, such as, I think these are acronyms for bad things. I do not know these acronyms, such as GHG, NOx, and SOx, have been a concern for local communities. Oh, has ship source air pollution been a concern for local communities? To what extent has their knowledge contributed to the understanding of the impact of ship source air pollution? Have Arctic Watch imagined its role in this aspect?
To address the first part, are the air admissions, a concern for local communities? Yes. That was reiterated during the workshops that were held, all three workshops, the 2014, 2016, 2024, that the air emissions, also in addition to water emissions, underwater noise, just traffic, everything that a ship brings that's disruptive to the marine environment, it is a concern for local communities. But maybe I'll pass to Steve. Has their knowledge contributed to understanding the impact of ship source air pollution? So Arctic Watch is not doing ship source emission monitoring, but I'll pass it to Steve to talk more.
No, I think as you look at user group, and when we get a group together that's looking at the region and saying what their concerns are, and then putting stuff into a voluntary user's guide to say, hey, here are things that we are concerned with. here are some voluntary measures you can do. There are mandatory measures, there is polar code, there's different things. There's also questions on how that's enforced right now. It's supposed to be flag state enforcement. Who is that happening? Is that not happening? But again, collating these and then watching. And I like the example of if we think about a going through a school zone, and you're driving down the road and there's a school zone. Does everybody automatically slow down at the school zone? Some people might not realize, oh, it's that time of day. You might need a flashing light that, oh, it's that time of day, so slow down here. Some people might need to see a police car on the side of the road, oh, hey, gain my awareness. But that's one of the things that Arctic Watch is doing, is providing information, awareness, using tools and presence to kind of make sure everybody's aware. So if there are things that get addressed, we're not the experts on air pollution. We're not the experts on marine mammals. We're not the experts on a lot of things, but we are experts in gathering the information from the authoritative source and helping share information and making sure everybody's aware. I hope that answers the question.
All right.
Oh, ahoy,
I hope-
divers.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah, this is on how soon can we recognize, like, if there's an oil spill ahead of time? Can they be able, can Coast Guard be notified well ahead of time before, that we make any decisions to respond? If there's any incidents like that?
And I'd like to follow up when we get the answer on that one, if we can. Thank you, Edwin. Good question.
Thank you.
And just so everyone knows, we just had a U.S. Coast Guard, which is federal, and State Department of Environmental Conservation oil spill drill, real with all the 30 people showing up here in Nome. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Edwin.
Thank you.
Edwin, I don't know if you're talking about detection, like if we have any detection capabilities. We don't have anything special that's a detection capability, like a satellite or anything that's in our host of tools right now. But I will tell you, we can help communicate and communicate rapidly if we know about something. If somebody was to report something to the Arctic Watch, saying, hey, I saw an anomaly, I see something that may cause pollution or is doing pollution, we can quickly get that information up to people so they can start the response process, or prevent something from needing a response process.
Yeah,
Yes,
I just want to
Yeah,
ahead,
as far as the environment, we still haven't set any boundaries or like what you call that, geofencing or anything of that sort yet. But if there's a spill, if it comes to that borderline, we want to be able to make rapid response if we have to, to address it to our communities that use our coasts for subsistence and stuff. So it will be important for us to recognize some of those down the road.
Yeah.
Anna, did you want to say something?
Well, I think Edwin might be talking about geographical response strategies, in preventative stuff. If you know that there's pollution heading your way, there's protective booming strategies and the regional response plans and that. And again, that's one of the things, if we know something's happening, we will try and get information out, especially through the network of people that we've already started collecting with. Edwin, you being one of them, who we've shared information back and forth. I think you fed us some stuff and asked us some questions, and we've done so. Better communications is never a bad thing, and we're certainly getting a stronger network at that.
Thanks a lot.
Yep, thank you.
And thank you, Edwin. And I wanted to just underscore what Steve said about prevention, and really one primary goal is to prevent accidents such as oil spills from happening in the first place through having oversight and through having communication with vessel operators. And you mentioned geofences, and those can be set up, but one example of how communication and oversight can lead to prevention is there are areas to be avoided, which are boundaries set around St. Lawrence Island, King Island, as well in the region, Nunivak Island. And large ships are not supposed to be entering those areas unless they need to for a specific reason. And so if a ship is straying into that area in order to prevent them from getting too close to an area that would be dangerous, the Marine Exchange can communicate to the vessel operator and give them a heads up. Hey, you're about to enter this area to be avoided. Maybe they're doing it for a reason, because they need to go into port, because they need to avoid something in the environment such as sea ice. But if they don't have a good reason to, then that's such as an example to prevent a grounding that could lead to an oil spill.
Sorry
I
for the
wanted to-
hack coughs. I'm trying to get that out of there, but
I wanted to share one quick thing that is kind of related to prevention, and most people assume that when you have an oil spill, that when you say preventable, a lot of folks don't know that a lot of these international vessels that are cruising through our waters, they have very complicated, insurance and all that kind of, I've just learned a little bit about it just hanging out with the Marine Exchange and working with you guys. But a lot of times these vessels are very reluctant to call in any problems they have. They're going to try to do everything they can to try to fix it in-house. If they lose power and they're drifting, they're going to try to avoid calling for help until the very, very last minute. And a lot of times it's too late. So what I've been really amazed at the Marine Exchange too, is kind of being a watchdog, is that seeing that AIS data, having that system where if a vessel looks like it's having an issue or something, that you guys reach out and say, hey, what's going on? It's pretty amazing. Even, for instance, an example, we're sitting there eating dinner in Nome during our workshop, not during our workshop that we had in Nome last spring, having dinner. And then, all of a sudden Steve and Byron start whispering and saying, hey, we need to get back to our computers, because their team saw a vessel that had slowed down that didn't look like it was having issues down the Aleutians. And sure enough, they're responding real time to these types of events on the regular, which I really appreciate. And so I just wanted to say that a lot of times these vessels, when you say preventive prevention of these disasters, they have a reluctancy to call in on themselves. And a lot of times the Arctic Watch or Marine Exchange will reach out to the vessel and say, hey, what's going on? And then kind of start that process of recovery and prevention.
so thank you. And I guess I'll just add, Edwin's question is a good one, because a lot of people might not recognize, but this region has had several oil fouling events from unknown sources. So ships have gone down and people didn't know about it on our side. Big ships, processors, right? And it's gone on in 2012. We had oil fouled wildlife, 2013, 2012, 2013, 2014, birds and seals. We've had marine debris events that look like a ship went down, but we don't know. And we are really tied with that border. And especially if you live on St. Lawrence Island, Diomede, Wales. So the history is there of not knowing, but we do rely on the U.S. Coast Guard, which I'm sure Steve White and Marine Exchange of Alaska are probably like this, right? They're down there in Juneau where the Coast Guard live. A lot of them, the workers there were Coast Guard, so they know the people, know the language, know how it works, which is super great. We've even had biofouling, which is sort of fish waste oil killing birds off St. Lawrence Island. Again, hind tracking took it into the Gulf of Anadir, but no further investigation on that. So, knowing that our U.S. Coast Guard has the ability to call Vladivostok, the FSB sort of headquarters for the Pacific, and say, do you guys have a problem? Is the Arctic Watch kind of looking towards reaching out and establishing, or is that would be the Coast Guard's job, but do you see that as becoming tighter with your program or your project? And I say that because, as we know, a lot of the ship traffic, a lot of the industrial ship traffic that is coming through 1,200-foot LNG tankers, ice capable, Russian nuclear icebreakers, whatever, 600 feet, middle of winter. All these big vessels are coming down, and they're allowed in the Bering Strait region to go whichever way because it's an international strait of passage. It's always a concern for this region. Is somebody able to, hopefully this program, are you able to make that happen? With this spill drill, the Coast Guard showed up, and the very first day, one of the first questions was, is the spill coordination, is this response going to be coordinating with the Russians in the future, this kind of thing? And they sort of had an answer that sounded like they will be working with Canada very closely, but there's a bit of a gap for us right now with communications with the Russian Coast Guard. Do you guys see this? Is there a way to help bring communication or bring your program? Is this something the public of Chukotka could maybe get a look at? Or are you going to be working with the Coast Guard on those kind of foreign vessel things? Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, so it's a great question, and it's also a super legitimate concern. How vessels that are on innocent passage that are not going to or from a US port, and really don't have any kind of requirement to follow any kind of US law or notifications or any of that. So how do we address that? One, by working together, and I did a lot of work when I was in the Coast Guard, working with the Russians before the conflict started up, where we went from their folks were just fishing in U.S. waters, and people supposedly fishing in U.S. Russian waters over in the U.S. with no regulation, to where we started working together, and we actually reduced those boats from doing what's called incursions into the U.S. waters. That same kind of cooperation can take place, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of trust. And I think we've taken some big steps backwards here recently, where some of those relationships have been slowed. Now, the Coast Guard, it does still maintain some relationships with Russia for search and rescue, supposedly so they can respond to an oil spill, but I don't think any of that we should think is as strong as it ever was, and hopefully we can get back there. But what I will tell you is amazing is how much we don't even work with the boats that are in the US and subject to US stuff to address some of this stuff, especially in the Arctic, where it's happened in other parts of the state. So it's a building block thing, and I think ideally one day we would get to a point where these voluntary measures and best practices are shared internationally and endorsed through the IMO and other organizations, and you can get that out, and you just try and raise compliance to the highest possible standard to prevent something from happening. But it's a long, hard journey, but luckily we got a great group of people and a lot of different organizations that are putting that yoke on their shoulders and starting to carry the load. So
Oh, Gary,
You're-
you're muted.
Thank you. Quite a night for me. Coughing, muted. So thank you for your patience. All right, so there is a comment from Hio Eichen in the chat, and he says, thanks for the great overview. What are hurdles preventing integration of vessel positions and tracks and relevant environmental data, e.g. surface winds, waves, ice cover, surface currents if high-frequency radar available, into a unified picture? What can be done to overcome those hurdles? Thoughts on that? Thank you.
That's a great question. And there's some of the folks on here that there's a lot done. Like I said, a lot of research, a lot of information being gathered in the Arctic, and tons of money that's been spent. And getting that stuff, we've talked about it in stovepipes. A lot of people doing great work in stovepipes. And the question that I would say is, how do we break down those stovepipes and start getting information shared in an efficient manner to make all of it go together? Well, Arctic Watch is one of those. IARPIC is one of those. Working together, having a platform where that can bring in different inputs is one of those. Figuring out where we need more sensors and not having two people go up there to put one for research and one for FAA. We can get one sensor up there and then we can put another sensor somewhere else. So we need to collaborate together with a limited resources to have maximum effect. And things like this and some of the other organizations out there is how we start putting that together. Would be my answer to that.
And I would also say that on the homepage of Arctic Watch, where Corey was showing earlier that where you can see the AIS data, there are different layers to that where you can see environmental data and you can see ice cover data as well. So some of those layers do already exist in what's available. And of course, there's a lot of other information that exists as well that maybe one day there would be a way to integrate that all together.
All right. Any other questions or thoughts? There is Kimberly Marr has left some good spill reporting numbers. The National Reporting Center, if anyone sees any oil, and of course DEC, State of Alaska, is always keen to learn if we've dropped any oil. I mean, like any. I think it's even 1 to 10 gallons, something like that, up to whatever's going on at sea. And Mary Turnipseed has a question saying, I wonder if you could also incorporate real-time data / alerts from Cerulean, that must be an app, to detect oil spills / slicks. And she leaves the web page there, which I haven't gone to. Is that something you could address?
Mary, I've got it up right now. I'm looking at it, and Byron Hayes is, I see that he's also in attendance. He's our command center, our operations center supervisor, and a couple of our watch standers are signed in. So we will certainly look at that and see if there's some opportunities there. There might be some opportunities there to kind of watchdog, if you will. So thank you for pointing that out.
It may or may not be useful, Captain, but I just thought I'd point that out, that I think they are trying to assemble real-time data and provide it to people who need it.
Yep. No, great.
Awesome. Thank you, Mary. That's awesome. All right. Let me just check my page. Is everyone else? How are you guys doing? We're past the 7:30 mark. I think you got most of my questions answered. So what we should expect in summer 2025 here in the Bering Strait waterway is to see Corey and some other people traveling and asking us best practices. Is that going to be a entity thing? Is that a tribal thing? Is that Partners of Arctic Watch?
I think we're feeling that out right now.
Okay.
Given I'm gonna pull together the plan to how we approach with the resources on with the travel and all that, and we definitely want to do something that is is sustainable as well. So I know that we can make a big deal about going and doing a really big thing, but then again, we gotta try to strategically utilize our strengths and resources and tools here to try to develop something that is going to be useful going on into the future. So we want to bite off what we can chew, basically. So
All right.
And there will be efforts ongoing to kind of start working towards the formation of some kind of harbor safety committee, waterway safety committee, and that'll be hopefully a place where it provides a platform, a venue for people to provide input. And so that work is going on right now, Gay.
Wonderful. Well, I hope we see you, Corey. Swing by.
you'll be hearing from me.
Okay. With that, I just wanted to let people know because they jumped off, but the internet is so good on some of these research vessels that we actually had the Norsemen tuning in. So we have 3 islanders from St. Lawrence Island, as well as a Nome-based St. Lawrence Islander listening in. So that was pretty neat. They had to get going because they had to go tag some walrus. So they are having a good time and finding, there's a research effort, and they're working on that right now. We'll try to get them to do a straight science at a later date. But how about that? So given that we still have St. Lawrence Island people in the audience, is there anybody from the Nome, Bering Strait region, St. Lawrence Island focused participants that have any questions for the speakers? Or you feel like you got it? Got it. We'll wait. Unmute if you'd like to speak up. Don't unmute if you don't. We just want to make sure you have an opportunity. Sometimes this is straight science. Straight science residents are actually the most important participants. So so thank you everyone else for coming. And at this time, I guess if Steve, Anna, and Corey want to stay on for just 1 second, we'll let everyone go. Know that the next Straight Science will be July 10th. We're going to take a little break. It's summertime. July 10th, when we're going to have Rebecca Woodgate, who's going to talk about, she's an oceanographer who's been working up here for 15 years, 20 years, and she has underwater equipment tied to these mooring devices that are big anchored with a chain and a float. She's got her equipment on there below the sea surface. She has them all around Diomede and right up to whales, and she is going to give us what she's found over the years. She's from the United Kingdom, so it's always been hard to grab her, and we're grabbing her. She's going to be in Nome July 10th, which is a midsummer, but we're going to record her and hear what she has to say. For those of you who are interested, all the Straight Sciences that are recorded are on YouTube. If you Google Straight Science YouTube, there's quite a bit, and this will be added on to the mix. With that, thank you all so much for coming, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night, everybody.
Hello, I got another question on
Oh, go,
about
Edwin.
if Kare's still there.
Yep.
Is it okay if I share on Facebook some of the information that we have so that we can get people to see what we got going? And we also have a community meeting here pretty soon. I want to bring up what they have to say about some of the questions I want to bring up to share some of the values that we have set up for Arctic Watch.
Yeah, Edwin, maybe if you have time, maybe we could set up a meeting in the next this week if you're available. I could shoot you a text message.
Okay, yeah, because they have like a joint meeting tomorrow with the community, but it's for different subjects. And while we have these community gatherings, it would be nice to, give share some of the information that I've been collecting and to see what kind of to see if they have any input, like as far as like if they want geofencing or what they have to say about marine vessels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Edwin. And you're at the top of the list. Savungo is at the top of the list for this for this initiative to reach out to communities, to take it a step further, just because you've been most active with But it's been about 2 weeks since this kind of I took this role as the engagement lead. So we're working really fast to make a plan to do all this work, as far as engaging and setting up the process to inform the Arctic Waterways Safety Guide. But I'll be in touch. Maybe I'll give you, since you have a meeting tomorrow, maybe I'll give you a call after this Zoom to touch
All
base
right,
with you
great.
really quickly.
Thanks, Kaare. Yeah.
Yep. You're welcome, Edwin. And I see that Frank had a question there too. Okay.
Yes, and Frank's still on, so we're gonna thank you for pointing that out. I just saw it too. Frank's question is there an incorporated plan with the small community emergency, I think it's response plans in our region? So for background, every small community has to have a SCRP, a small community emergency response plan. It's like a book of, and the community gets to pick, what are your 10 biggest threats? Tsunami, fire, or whatever it is. And I have to say, there's at least one in our community that has invasion, and that has to be really one of the rarest for the country. And if we don't have a SCRP, then you cannot access FEMA money during an emergency. So these SCRPs are really important, and they came up in the oil spill drill as well. So is there an incorporated plan to add, I'm not sure, Frank, if you want to elaborate, but to add more information or jive with the small emergency response plans throughout the region that are unique to each community? Have I got that right?
Yes, oil spills are one of the plans to get the community members involved. Although other communities can hop in and help the community. And I think with the Nome planning, I think we could have had that in our incorporated plan with the Coast Guard. So if Nome needs help, our villages can go up and help. So each community needs to help each other to do a planning, such
Excellent.
as an oil spill.
And maybe Steve White will know the answer to this. It came up, Frank, I don't know if you were at the spill drill in Nome, but it came up. Why are oil spills not in the state SCRPs? Because I think there's a thing there where they're not in there. Do you know more about that, Steve?
I
No.
don't. The
Anna?
only thing I think is maybe because there's such a focus on oil spills already through the RTTs and all that, that maybe they said, hey, that's already covered, but I don't know. That would only be a best guess.
Okay. Well, anyway, Frank, I think it's an awesome idea, and we need to get an answer for you. So thank you so much. Now these guys are aware of the SCRPs and putting
Yeah.
that in.
So I'll say a little bit.
Yeah.
Back at the National Tribal and Indigenous Climate Change Conference in Anchorage that happened last spring, just by coincidence, we were sharing during a side event, and we were doing a presentation that was paired up pretty much with the Kevin Knowlton and Fairweather Science, who was kind of, if I'm correct, right, that who leads the SCRPS organization in the region. is it the Kawerak disaster response, or is that disaster response plan a separate? Is that, do they do those
Kevin
at the same
Knowlton
time?
is the emergency preparedness specialist at Kawerak, and he has been leading an effort to work with communities to update their SCRPs, but I
Mhm.
haven't been involved with that.
So on that front, I think although it is very obvious that this is, you know, response to, you know, marine disasters is extremely relevant in that realm. We definitely we don't want to insert ourselves. So I think what we want to do is to make all the communities aware of what is available and be ready to help and step in when the communities would like us to kind of be involved, for instance, in that type of initiative. But we definitely wouldn't want to insert ourselves into if it's not community, if there's the community, not the community asking for us to be helpful in that space. But we have talked to Kevin, took part in our workshop that, as you know, that we had in Nome. So it'll be our duty to make sure that we make that network aware of what we have available, so that all of the communities developing their SCRPs, for instance, know of the resources that are available. Is that Frankie Mayumik? Is that correct?
Yes. Hi, Corey.
Oh, yeah, good to hear you. Yep.
All right, I closed it down way too early. So any other questions for Steve, Anna, or Corey? We still have quite a crowd on, so given none, we will see you next time, July 10th. And have a good night, everyone.